If you're listening to this on the day it comes out, beware the Ides of March. That is if you're Julius Caesar. But in all honesty, I tried looking up the Ides of March, and really, when I found out how Romans calculated dates and that they actually counted backward from certain points within the month instead of counting sequentially, I gave up and got a slice of today's topic to celebrate March 14th instead. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind pie. But first, a quick message. If you've been following the story behind lately, you know that the show will be turned into a book scheduled to come out in the fall. Now, I'm not planning on doing some book tour where I go to bookstores and read my book because, well, that's pretty much the podcast, right? But what I am planning on doing when the book comes out is doing a few meetups with listeners. So what I'd like to do, if you're interested, is going to a game night with you, either at your house if you'll have me. By the way, I love Settlers of Catan. Or if you want to meet for bar trivia at a local pub. Let me know if you're a listener to the show and you love trivia and games, or if you just want to have me on your bar trivia team. By the way, I can't guarantee how good I am because this show is scripted for a reason. Where I go is up to you. So if you're along the eastern side of the US, reach out to me. Let me know if this is something you would like to do. And I've already talked to one listener, Amy, down in Atlanta, who got me all excited to visit the Coca-Cola Museum. So that's one stop I'm planning on making. If this sounds like something you're interested in, you can contact me at thestorybehindpodcast.com/contact, or you can email me at emily@thestorybehindpodcast.com. And there will be those links in the show notes. March 14th may have been yesterday, and on top of being Einstein's birthday, it's also known as Pi Day. For those who don't know, Pi Day is celebrated on this date because the American way of writing dates with the month before the day looks like 314. And pi, although an irrational number with an infinite number of digits following the decimal place, can basically be shortened to 3.14. This number, pi, represents the constant ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. And in my rabbit hole of finding out information about pi, it turns out many mathematicians now are arguing that pi is actually a little ridiculous, since diameters aren't used to measure circles. But the radius would be more accurate, which is represented by tau. Did I lose you there? Don't worry, I got a little lost trying to remember freshman year geometry reading some of these articles. Basically, the diameter would be the distance from one end of a circle to the opposite. So picture someone slicing a pizza. That one motion of using a pizza cutter and rolling it from one side to the other would be like making the diameter. However, if you're thinking about a circle, as in a pie, the food, it's more effective to start cutting from the center point to the edge. And that line from the center to the edge is what's known as a radius. The radius is half the diameter. Make sense? Okay, so to recap, pizza, diameter, pi, radius. Pizza, pi, pi, tau. Are you even more confused? Well, the tau can be shortened to the number 6.28. So while I celebrated March 14th, Pi Day, with pizza, I'll be celebrating June 28th, Tau Day, with pie. So I went into a little bit about pi, the mathematical term, and I was going to go even more in depth on the history, but really, I'm not a math person. I can do it. I enjoyed algebra. I was even a tutor for a while in high school, but geometry? No. Let me solve for x. That's where I shine. Throw a few circles in there and I'm out. The gist, though, is that the furthest back we can trace pi to is to ancient Babylonians and Egyptians, around 4,000 years ago. They used numbers that were close to but not quite what we know today as pi. There's even a passage in the book of 1 Kings in the Bible many say describes pi. But really, the main man who calculated it, using the Pythagorean theorem, was a Greek mathematician named Archimedes of Syracuse who lived during the 3rd century BC. And if you're a Disney fan, you may know that name from the movie The Sword and the Stone, in which Merlin's pet owl is named Archimedes. Not a coincidence, by the way. Okay, that's enough math, I promise. Let's get to the most important pie, the kind we eat. While Thanksgiving may have turkey, Pie Day has pie. Pie is thought to go back to the ancient Greeks, then the Romans, but their popularity really surged in medieval Europe. Pies at the time weren't the delicious, fruit-filled pastries we know today. The crust itself was known as a coffin, spelled with a Y instead of an I. And it wasn't light and flaky. Most likely it was tough and bland. Pies were mostly stuffed with meat and fowl. In fact, fowl was such a popular filling, it was common to leave the feet attached and hanging over the edge of the pie, to use as a kind of handle for transporting it from the oven to the table. And if you ever wondered about the term eat crow, it comes from crow being another popular pie filling at the time. Even the nursery rhyme, 4 and 20 blackbirds, is thought to be a type of recipe for a pie, and it was also common for pies to be part of entertainment at parties. Hollow pies were made and live birds were stuffed inside through a trap door in the bottom, only to fly out when the top was removed or cut open. Kind of like a lady would jump out of a cake. Does that even happen anymore? The sweet pies filled with fruits and made with a more delicate crust were known as a tart in Europe, and somehow the term got lost in translation as it made its way to America to become known as pie. Most likely, if there were pies at the first Thanksgiving, they were probably stuffed with meat or vegetables. But soon sweeter pies became more popular, using fruits and spices. Having a crust that went over the top of the pie helped preserve the filling as well. Oh, and one more thing about pies. Without them, there would be no Frisbees. But that's an episode for another day. Information for this episode was sourced from Time Magazine, Slate, the American Pie Council, and more links which can be found in the show notes at thestorybehindpodcast.com. Want to talk more about this or past episodes? Find out about future episodes, enter giveaways, and more? Join me and other trivia buffs in the Story Behind discussion group on Facebook, and there will be a link in the show notes to take you there. And if you're new in the group and confused about why everyone's posting Africa memes, it's because they all know it's my favorite song, and apparently there are a lot of covers out there. This episode was brought to you by the Story Behind executive producers who support the show through the Patreon page at patreon.com/thestorybehind. Thanks for listening. Using the Pythagorean